The Federal Capital Territory, that's the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, on Thursday, August 1, called on people protesting against President Bola Tinubu's administration to embrace dialogue. Now, Wike said the government is ready to listen to and also walk them through some governance issues that may not have been that they may not have been private to. The minister made the appeal while presenting staff of office to the 4 newly appointed graded chiefs of Karu, Kwalipai and Yaba in the territory. Now, commending protesters in the FCT for being non-violent, Wike urged them to continue to resist those who wanted to destroy the nation. He said Abuja, as the nation's capital, remained a precious asset to the country, noting that if the FCT is destroyed, it will have negative consequences on the entire country. Wike said in his words, and I quote, "Let me take this opportunity to commend the people, the youth of Abuja, for not being violent. We have said severally that it is better to dialogue with the government and keep the peace. He who makes peace will at the end of the day enjoy the dividends of peace. I still want to talk to our people that we are still ready to sit down and dialogue with them and let them know things that they may not know, because information is power." And he also commended protesters in Abuja who refused to be violent again. Now, talking about dialogue, I know we have said time and time again that dialogue is important, but let's look at the previous protests. We don't want to go too far, just the entire protest here. Not too far. There was dialogue. The people had their demands. The government said, okay, fine, let's get to look at your demand. Now, one of the demands was end SARS. In fact, that was the hashtag with the protest, end SARS. But then at the end of the day, the reports have it that we just saw the name being changed. The people did not really get, according to them, they didn't really get exactly what they asked for. So even with dialogue, what is the guarantee that, you know, the demands will be met and the protest, the reason for the protest will be met at the end of the day? Is dialogue enough? What is going to be different about this dialogue this time?
Well, it's a very serious issue, very serious one. For me, dialogue, and after which no implementation, does it really make sense? It doesn't make sense. So the youth, we also have a major role to play to ending this issue of bad governance and hunger. We have a major role. I have a perception or a kind of idea. Well, before I unveil that, for me, dialogue is not out of place once issue of protest is being raised or concerned. It's good for people to dialogue. But how sincere are the leaders that the people are dialoguing with? That's my worry. That's my problem. They will do everything humanly possible to bring you to the table, to call you to come for dialogue. After the dialogue, they use different approach to dismiss whatever resolution or consensus reached on the dialogue table. So that is a very big problem. And I will keep saying that our leaders should no longer take the people for granted. They should no longer take the youth for granted. Now, you see, when I say at times our leaders are the cause of the problem we are having, the level of insincerity and insensitivity among our leaders is quite alarming. I once read, that our FCT minister, Chief Barrister Nyesom Wike, said that Abuja is not for protest, right? I once read that. And then he also made a comment, which I watched, that the protesters are faceless. The protesters, that they are faceless, that nobody knows them. And there was a reply to that statement by one of the organizers of the protest. That's Take It Back. And today, we are also hearing, the FCT minister urging the protesters to remain peaceful, and then he's calling for...
I don't think at any point he has said that the people are not allowed to protest. The governors of different states and even the FCT minister, what they have been saying is, what they've been doing is pleading with the people to also look at the other side of it. Because when you get to protest, what is the guarantee that hoodlums will not hijack it. Especially when we had the River State governor the other day said the intelligence reports that some people would want to bring in hoodlums from outside the state to come hijack the protests. And that's why yesterday we had our guards, our eyes everywhere, and we're happy that in River State there was no record of, violence, aside what they said about blocking the roads and, extorting monies from passengers who are also bearing the brunt of the whole hardship at the end of the day. So let's get back to the dialogue talk now. When we talk about dialogue this time, what do we expect?
What we expect this time around is for the government to be very sincere and direct. The protesters have earmarked what they want to be done. The issue of hunger is stopping, right? The issue of subsidy is there. That's a fuel.
So people want the subsidy to return?
Exactly. That's also part of it, because if whichever way we look at it, the petroleum industry, the oil industry has a major role to play in Nigeria's economy. So that's one area that is biting so hard. And you see how people talk about even some of the things we produce within the country is very expensive. Now, I asked them, have you considered the channel of production? Have you checked the route through which some of those finished products were produced? Have you considered if power was needed? Have you checked if, fuel, petrol, if transportation? So when you now check all of that and you consider the cost of petrol, the cost of fuel, you now discover that those increasing the cost of pepper, the cost of tomato, they are not doing that because it actually took them much to produce, but it took them a lot
to transport,
to convey the material, to recycle or to refine or probably process that produce.
People believe that's where all of these hardships
that is it.
Removal of fuel.
That is it. So if the government wants to really dialogue, of course, for goodness sake, you are there to represent the people. You are there to ensure that your people are okay. You are there to ensure that your people, stay alive and then enjoy whatever policy you're setting up. So if the people, the masses are saying, oh, please, our government, yes, we understand that you had good intention. This particular policy is for the interest of the nation, but the current reality is showing that it's biting too hard on the people. Please reconsider. Is it a hard thing for our government to do? It's not something hard. The government can as well consider and then go back to drawing board and re-strategize. For instance, I have heard of from some analysts say that there were no right measure, that the government didn't actually consider the effect of removal of subsidy on petroleum. That if the government had considered that, the government wouldn't have done that when it was done. So if you now look at what is happening currently, you agree to that with that statement.
So you believe it's the timing that was wrong?
Definitely.
Not the whole process of removing the subsidy.
Of course, from what we have read, the subsidy removal, from what we have heard and from what I believe that the government is trying to do by removing subsidy, for me, it's not a bad idea. But what did the government do to cushion the effect? There is always a positive and negative effect of whatever decision and policies taken by the government or any organization. So the relevant agencies must sit back to critically assess the resultant effect of whatever policy they want to give. So if the government had done that thoroughly, note the effect, and then also propose ways or solutions to cushion that effect, believe me, Nigerians would not be protesting today.
So now the youths of the FCT have been told to come in for dialogue. Do you think this is a time for them to put an end to the protest and just go in for dialogue?
Well, I believe the message has not really gone down yet.
Well, why do you say it hasn't gone down yet?
Yes, the message hasn't gone down.
It's in our truth.
Yes, the message hasn't gone down. The message needs to go down. The message we need to see, for instance, one of the state governors yesterday came out to address to address the masses, the protesters. I think that's commendable. You know, we need to see, for instance, the FCT minister now calling for dialogue. I believe the FCT minister understands what Nigerians are saying. I believe he understands because he's a grassroots leader. He understands. There is nothing wrong also coming out to address the protesters. So those are some of the signs that will now convince protesters that indeed our message, you know, is beginning to sink, is entering, is penetrating. I want to also commend what the IGP did yesterday. You know, there was prompt responses to issues, security issues. You know, there was a press conference that was held yesterday in Abuja. And I really commended that gesture. So those are some of the things that, for me, we expect from our leaders before the dialogue. They should actually convince us that they have agreed, they have understood that there is hunger in the land, and that hunger needs to be dealt with. Then before we come to the dialogue.
All the while, our leaders actually knew that there was hunger in the land, and they knew that it could be dealt with, and they actually knew what to do because it's the office. For you to come into office, it means you understand what the operations are there. But let's take
Believe me, not all the leaders, not all of them understand the operations.
They just came into office without understanding the operations of it. But why did we put them there? Because most of the offices are being voted for.
That's a story for another day. That's a story for another day. That's your issue of competence. You know, fixing, you know, round peg into a round hole. That's where it comes in. Check most of the ministry. Check most of the
peg in
a round hole. That's what is happening in Nigeria. You take a professional in a particular field and inject that professional into another field. How would that particular sector or field work?
All right, at this point, we'll take some time of just a very short break. After that, we'll return to continue our conversation. More stories on our table. Please stay with us.